welcome to Sahara TV, States of the Nation. And with us is Ogaga Ifowodo, a poet, a lawyer, a writer, and an activist. It's a pleasure having you on Sahara TV again, Mr. Ifowodo.
Thanks for having me. It's been a while, hasn't it?
Indeed, indeed. Let's start with the first issue, the immolation of Miss Deborah Samwell by her fellow students at Shehu Shagari College of Education, Sokoto, on the accusation of blasphemy has continued to generate mixed reactions across the country. While some Muslims have justified the mob action that led to Deborah's death, many Nigerians have continued to condemn the perpetrators for taking the law into their own hands. You quite remember that Deborah was lynched, stoned to death, and burned by irate Muslim fanatics who had accused her of blasphemy. Ifowodo, how shocked were you when you heard this?
As shocked as every sensate being, every normal human being. I'm using the word normal because I consider anybody who can find any reason under the sun to justify that horrendous crime to be abnormal. I'm glad the president has said that, has condemned it. I'm glad the spiritual leader of the Muslims in Nigeria, the Sultan of Sokoto, has condemned it. I'm glad again, like that every reasonable, normal human being is repulsed, revolted by it, and has condemned it. For me in particular, I keep asking the question, and I've said this elsewhere. What is it on earth that makes a human being who believes in a supreme God, who is all powerful, we before him are nothing like, just like a breath. We are nothing. What makes us think that we are in a position to defend that God against his own creation, his own, things that he created himself, whose entire lives are in his hands, he can take at any time. He knows what they are doing. He knows what is done before, what they've done before. He knows what they are planning to do. If we are to believe what all the great scriptures tell us about this omniscient, omnipotent, and what is the other thing? Is all powerful, is all knowing, is everywhere, and omnipresent, God. He's everywhere. He's all powerful. He knows all things. And yet we think that we as mere mortals, who are sinners, by the way, because no matter how righteous we are, no matter how holy we present ourselves to be, we are still unrighteous. We only live by his grace. We only get what we get through his mercy, his infinite mercy. Who are we to then seize upon another fellow being created by the same God and kill him or her? Not only just merely kill, but in the manner of Deborah Samwell, and say we are doing it in the name of a loving God, an infinitely loving and merciful God. So I think every normal human being ought to be revolted by this, to be repulsed by this, and in fact begin to question those beings, whether they are Muslims or in some other instances, whatever faith they profess, whether they are Muslims at all. And lastly, what are the leaders, the teachers, the spiritual guides of this faith, of this religion doing to make it known to the adherents of their faith that to do this is not to present a God that is loving, that is all powerful. They make it look as if their God, after all, is weak. He's too weak. He's too ignorant. He's too unknowing to defend his own name or to defend his mightiness, all his strength and his, how shall I put this now, all pervading might. It's as if he's not aware. If we claim this blasphemy, it's as if he's unaware that he's been blasphemed. And therefore, we have to let him know that he's been blasphemed. And if he was aware that he's been blasphemed, that he cannot do anything about it. He's too weak to do anything about it. Therefore, us human beings who are more concerned about preserving his glory, his might, and everything you want to attribute to him must now stand, do that on his behalf. And lastly, on that point, if life is sacred and we take it, we actually are diminishing the value of our own lives. We make it possible for adherents of another faith to also be this intolerant, to be this arrogant, to be this self-important, and therefore take it upon ourselves to say that adherents of another faith have also blasphemed their own God or have violated one tenet of their religion or another and use that as a pretext to then murder, to destroy, and to maim. Now, I know I said finally before, and I will say this, the last finally on this point. Who defines blasphemy? And which law was broken? Because I've been hearing the term, they shouldn't take the law into their hands. But what law was taken into their hands? What offense? This is not a question of taking the law into their hands. This is just a question of not even respecting the law at all. Because in Nigeria is a secular country. We are a secular state, which means we don't have a state religion, which means every faith, every religion, everybody is free to practice any religion of their choice, and even to have no religion. So there was no law that was broken. You can only say you blasphemed against God within the state of Nigeria if there's an official religion that is a theocracy. It's a theocracy, and therefore you are by law not allowed to say anything against God of that religion, of which the state is an official religion of the state. So what law was broken? So I've never believed in that notion of they shouldn't take the law into their hands. Actually, they were making laws of their own, and not that they were taking any law that has been broken and into their hands.
Thank you very much for bringing that legal perspective to that matter. Let me get your perspective on this. Earlier on, you talked about the need for the leaders and the spiritual guides to give proper orientation, so to speak. And you questioned why mere mortals will justify the killings in order to defend a god. Questions have been raised about the ills of the belief systems in the north and the interpretation of the Quran by these so-called religious leaders. And there has been a call for a need to have religious and preaching regulations. Do you agree with that? And I also like to get your view on the fact that a statement was connected to this, that mob violence has been a political tool for northern elites. Do you think they will even have the political will to actually ensure that there is a need to have regulations in order to curb this kind of instances where jungle justice is being done?
Yeah, we're in a society of laws precisely because we need to regulate conduct. We need to regulate activities in a way that will preserve peaceful coexistence and harmony. Is why we're in society. So if it's clear that this has been one of the major sources of catastrophic, conflicts in our society. We're talking about right from the time of Maitasine, riots, down to the rise of Boko Haram and so on. This has been one of the greatest threats to our continued existence, corporate existence as one country. So it is of utmost importance that it should be regulated. As a matter of fact, I think there are two issues here. First, state regulation, of behavior, of conduct in order to promote peaceful coexistence, which is the whole basis of our coming into society. And also the individuals themselves truly understanding what their faith enjoins on them. These people are not acting out any true tenet of any faith that they profess. But leaving that aside, the state definitely has a role. Now, if there are laws ordinarily anyway, of course, criminals, I mean, like these are criminals, so they can be very easily proceeded against under the existing laws of the country. The question is, where is the will to actually go after these criminals who stir up, insurrection, stir up hate, mob violence, and murder, mayhem, destroy property, who the state is not going after them. They ought to be prosecuted. The reason why laws are made is so that to deter conduct that is criminal. So if you make laws, offenses are created, and then they are not enforced, the laws are not enforced, then of course, they will feel free to do whatever they do. Now, I know it's a sensitive area because if you say regulate religion, you will hear all kind of outcry about what religion is being over-regulated, regulated more than the other.
Yeah.
Because we're such, how shall I put it? Use the cloak of their religion, crimes, threaten the sovereignty of Nigeria. But this is a case in which the state can very clearly articulate what reasons it has for going against them. And everybody, of course, we don't even need to, as I take the case of the Deborah Samwell, does the state need any justification to go against those who perpetrated that horrible crime? They don't need any more justification. It can't get worse than that. So if they are prosecuted, if they are made to feel the full wrath of the law, and those who also enable them, because it's not just those who carried out the murder, those who conspired with them, those who enable them, the preachers who incite them, who poison their minds, who make them believe that the secularity of Nigeria is nothing, that the Constitution does not matter, that is the law of God, of their God, or at least of God as revealed through their religion alone, that matters. And that this faith, this religion, must then be imposed on everyone else, whether or not they are adherents. I think those people too are actually the primary culprits, if you ask me. They are the primary culprits because they are the ones poisoning the minds of the youth. We're talking about the College of Education. So ordinarily, this is a place where you expect reason to prevail. You expect reason, you expect more rational minds, that these are people who are going to also be teachers, who will teach our youth, prepare the minds for the future. And yet, we are able to witness such irrationality. And actually, a professor who claims to, an imam who also claims to be a professor, found justification for this. And you ask yourself, why are we not proceeding against these people who are enabling, who are giving comfort to those who then carry out the actual crimes in the streets, who actually carried out the lynching, the burning, the stoning to death? It can't be more barbaric than that. How in the 21st century are we still able to witness this in our society? Against the bulwark of the Constitution that provides for the secularity of Nigeria as a state. So the law must now be strictly enforced. These are crimes. Let's not try to complicate things by making a look at it as religion. No, it's not religion. Nobody is expressing religious belief here. What has happened is a crime, and therefore must be proceeded against as a crime. And when this is done consistently, trust me, you will begin to see either, first of all, a lessening of this kind of inhuman, outrageous behavior, but also, finally, people will understand that yes, we're a secular country, and in a secular country, you are free to practice any belief or any faith, and to also free not to practice anyone at all, not adhere to anyone at all. In fact, the test of your faith is that it can bear every criticism, every so-called blasphemy, every so-called going against the tenets of your faith and remain strong, because it is not of man. Any of the major faiths or belief system, even including our traditional ones, which by the way are more tolerant. You will never hear of Ifa worshippers setting against the worshippers of another traditional, faith, or Igbe. From Delta State, where I come from, say Igbe worshippers setting against, others who believe in another. No, you will never see it. You never see them in the streets looting and burning. It is always, always these foreign religions, these world dominant religions, these of the Abrahamic faiths, because these three religions, Christianity, Islam, and Judaism, they are of the same, they come from the same place. They are the Abrahamic faiths, from one father, from one source, and yet they are the ones that are always causing the greatest problems on earth. So those who are their true interpreters, those who are their custodians, those who are their spiritual guides, they must take it upon themselves to stem this, because it does not advertise their God in the best light. It does not advertise their God as all loving, or all merciful, and all powerful, all knowing, and all present everywhere. So those who are committing these crimes must be proceeded against under the existing laws and without allowing room for any religious sentiments.
Great. Let's look at another issue. Recently, we heard about the beheading of a serving legislator in Anambra State. Imagine he was kidnapped and beheaded. Has the security situation in the southeast gotten out of hand, in your opinion?
It has gotten out of hand in the whole country. It's only recently we were talking about the train, the Abuja, Kaduna. I mean, it can't get worse than that, really. I mean, blow up the tracks, abduct, scores of passengers, take them into the forest, and some of them actually have not been released. It has gotten out of hands in the whole country. So the challenges that we face as a country are enormous, both on the economic front and on the security front. And I think that what this is doing is that it is gradually making us become more attuned, deadened, to the value of life, where terrorist tactics become the only way in which we try to make ourselves heard. Because this is usually happen when you feel that the space, when the feeling is that the space for civil discourse, the political space, has shrunk radically and has excluded too many people, and they can't be heard, to the resort to extreme measures. And I'm just going to put it out there because I know we can say millions of words, trying to explain this, but I think fundamentally it boils down to one question, which is Nigeria. We still haven't defined the way in which we think that we can live peacefully, harmoniously with each other, with respect for all the various ethnic nationalities that constitute the country, so that ways in which we can resolve conflicts can become more easily acceptable to all of us. So it's basically like we haven't quite accepted Nigeria as our country and fully invested in it. So there's still a fight to literally define enclaves for ourselves in which we feel we can then agree on the terms of coming together. But until we solve that question of Nigeria and the basic, the articles of association, irrevocable articles of association, subject to amendment, of course, like every society, but at least those founding articles of association that we can all agree to, that we guarantee to all of the clamoring, sections, those things that they believe we enable them to express themselves, to be self-determining, be in charge of their lives, while being part of the whole in a just and equitable manner. Until we do that, I don't think some of these things are going to go away anytime soon. Because the more we postpone the day that we come together, whatever name you want to call it, whether it's a sovereign national conference, a people's conference, ethnic nationalities conference, citizens conference, whatever name we call it, to agree on how we can live together peacefully, it's going to get worse because people are going to get more extreme, more feel more marginalized, even more marginalized, and therefore resort to even more desperate measures to, quote unquote, make themselves heard. To kill.
Let me just quickly coach you, should I crave your indulgence. Earlier on, you talked about the right to self-determination. There is a need for us to come together to actually define that. The article of our association as an entity called Nigeria. There's been this blame game going on as far as the crisis in the southeast is concerned. Some have cast aspersions at Buhari's government's heavy-handedness, which has actually led to the radicalization of the members of IPOB, that is Indigenous People of Biafra members. And we've also heard from governors of the Saudis themselves saying that the killings happening are politically motivated. In fact, let me quote one of the governors, that's the Ebonyi State Governor, David Humahi, who stated recently in an interview that he stated, and I quote, Igbo people are largely responsible for killings in Southeast, not Fulani or other outsiders, that the atrocities committed in the region were largely carried out by youth there. What's your take on this?
That is the governor of a southeastern state saying that. I'm in Delta State. There's no reason why I should disagree with him. It is true. They are largely carried out by these misguided followers of IPOB. Now, just forget, before IPOB, there was MASOB.
Yeah.
And then, of course, even the biggest one of all, which was the Biafran War. I'm still talking about the question of our being together as Nigeria. You see, I take as my example for this, or at least a take-off point for me is the example of Ahmadu Bello, Sir Ahmadu Bello, the revered Sir Ahmadu Bello. Under our prime ministerial system then, NPC having won the election to form the government, and the leader of NPC will be the prime minister. Ahmadu Bello chose to remain as premier of the northern region rather than come to be prime minister of Nigeria. Why? Because that was when we had true federalism on the pillars of the regional governments just before independence. So that way, within that framework, the northern region could, as it were, be more self-determining, have a freer room, ample room for self-determination, live within what they consider to be those things, just cultural values, religious values, and its way of life more suitable to itself, to that region, without rankling, ruffling feathers in the eastern region or in the western region, and later in the Midwest region. That is what it means. But all of a sudden, starting with the Ironsi, because Ironsi, we must remember, is the one who actually destroyed that foundation with his unity government decree. So in just one act, we stopped being a federation and became a unitary government. Everything now in one place. So when all powers now left the regions and came to the center became so attractive that it is a do or die to get to the center. If it had been so, I will bet you that Sir Ahmadu Bello would have not sent his deputy, Balewa, to head the government of Nigeria while he was content to just be a regional premier. So this is all part of what I mean by Nigeria has to agree, define Nigeria itself, and then the ways in which we can live peacefully with each other. The powers into the regions, to the states, or whatever federative units we have, we must define all of that. Now, if Umahi, who is a sitting governor of the Eastern region, says it is Igbo youths who are carrying out these crimes, I have no reason to doubt him. But that apart, I'm still going down to the question of why are they doing it, the Igbo youths? Igbo youths are not like they were born to be murderers more than any other person in the world. No, there's a reason. That's what I'm saying. When you feel unheard, when you feel this nation cannot guarantee you the space in which to be a true citizen, and by a true citizen, you mean the one who enjoys all the rights that our Constitution so beautifully enunciates, even as flawed as the 1979 Constitution is, still, when you feel you cannot enjoy those rights, you have no room for self-determination. You have no room to have a say within the affairs of the country. And you feel shortchanged, marginalized, shoved aside. You resort to desperate measures. So I think, and then we add the whole question of joblessness, unemployment, our educational system has collapsed, not really imparting real values. We have taken the example of the Shehu Shagari College of Education, where we would have thought that as an institution of higher education, you would expect rationality to prevail there, because these are the future custodians and trainers of the minds that will lead Nigeria, the so-called leaders of tomorrow, and yet irrationality of the worst kind manifested its head there. So there's a whole lot that has gone wrong for too long that we cannot postpone the day that we all come together and say, we all know our country is at the crossroads. What do we do to fix it? And decide on how we can fix it and live peacefully and harmoniously together. So that our youth were not always these murderers. In fact, there was a time when our youth were among the leading lights of the society, right from the Anglo Defense Pact of 1962, where the students of the University College of Ibadan then, protested, Nigeria signing its security up to Britain, in other words, recolonizing Nigeria through a so-called defense pact, down to Ali must go when students were in the street protesting that education is a right, and so it should not be commercialized, down to 1989 when students were saying, no, you cannot mortgage our country to the IMF and the World Bank, by through a so-called structural adjustment program, down to 1993 when they were actually the leading lights in terms of the street protests to protest the annulment of the June 12, 1993 election. Nigerian youth have actually always been among, the leading conscience, the leading conscience of the country. So if they are now more into Yahoo, 419, ritual killing, beheading of fellow citizens, you will know that something fundamental has been broken. And that thing has to be fixed, and we don't have time. And the best way to do it is let the country come together in a conclave, in a conference, whatever they want to call it. Let's decide how to fix Nigeria and how to make it a peaceful, harmonious space for everybody for self-actualization.
One final question on this Anambra beheading of this serving legislature. The governor of the state, that's Governor Soludo, actually paid a visit to Kano some couple of weeks earlier. And with regard to this issue, he issued a statement condemning the actions and putting out a bounty on the perpetrators. Is that enough? Do you see that as being enough?
Well, usually it's an incentive is one step. It's one step among many, because first of all, you are looking for people you don't know where they are. And they are among the people. So anybody who knows them can give them up because there's incentive, to it. So a bounty, a prize, reward, that's always a part of the way of trying to track down, fugitives, people who have committed crimes are in hiding. But of course it's not enough. Of course it's not enough. This is by now, actually, we should expect that literally almost all those who were involved should have been, nabbed, because First of all, the police will have this panoply of security agencies, from the intelligence agencies to the police. I think by now, some people should already be in the net, by now. I don't see why. They are not spirits, and if they are doing their work, let's just put it this way. If the security agencies are doing their work, by now, we should already be having suspects, and talking about possible arraignment. So that's not enough. Governor must do everything within his power, because this is literally what is marking his tenure as governor. He was just inaugurated in office. So this is a defining moment. How he handles this, whatever pressure he puts, because I have to also give him cut some slack. He does not control the police. He does not control security agencies, which again goes to the question I have been harping on, which is our agreeing on the way the country will be run, including local policing, including how much state policing, local police, community policing, state policing, and all of that. Because if he had a police force that he commands as the chief security officer of his state, then he can give the riot act to them, call them and give them certain specific orders, do so by so time, what do you need, make that available to them, and expect results. But he cannot, call the commissioner of police, discipline, because he has an IG and he has a commander-in-chief who is in Abuja. All the security forces, intelligence agencies, they are under his control. Still, he wields enormous influence as a governor of the states to put pressure on the relevant agencies to ensure that they do after arrest and prosecute the perpetrators of this heinous crime.
Let's look at another issue, and that has to do with the APC PDP primaries. We've seen the Nigerian political circles continue to ridicule the country. We've seen different dramas. Let me put you on the spot here. I mean, from the APC or PDP primaries, who is your preference, and why?
Well, first of all, in the interest of full disclosure, you have to know that I tried to run to get the ticket of the APC to be the House of Reps. I didn't have enough money, so I didn't get very far. And even as recently as September, last year, I was asked by my party to run for a vacant House of Assembly seat in Delta State. Again, I didn't have enough money, and I didn't win. So I can't win anywhere, either at the federal or the state level. I'm a member of APC, but the thing with our country is often when we look at a singular event, we find that it is connected to already existing problems that predate that one. So that it is hard to fix the current problem without also trying to fix the pre-existing problems that create the conditions for the current one. And so the PDP has done some primaries already, for instance, under the previous rules. Now, the question is, APC has not done theirs. So are they going to do theirs under the previous rules or under the new rules? I'm not going to go into the details of that because I have a bigger issue, which I've written about before, especially when the question of whether there should be only direct primaries or not. I've written, not even once, I've written more than once about that. And my view is this: we over-regulate. We have lost track of the fact that political parties, as elevated as they are, because of the role they play in a democracy, in electoral politics, are at the end of the day actually voluntary associations. If they are under the freedom, the freedom of association means that we don't all have to belong to any party. We don't have to. In fact, the overwhelming majority of Nigerians are not members of any political party. They aren't. So if a party decides to bring its candidates either through direct primaries or indirect primaries or consensus, why are we so concerned about that, really? It should be up to the general electorate to know that Party A is so undemocratic. If they elected their flag bearers through such undemocratic means, it means that they won't be good Democrats if you vote for them. And you vote them out. If on the other hand, Party B obeys all the rules of freedom, fairness, and democracy, internal democracy, and elects their flag bearers through that process, again, the general electorate is taking notice and should vote for them because they feel this is the party that best exemplifies what we mean by democracy. Look at the way they practice democracy, even within their own party. Therefore, is a party to vote for. Now, having said all of that, the problem is that our votes don't all the time count. So the electorate has become so alienated.
Exactly, because I actually wanted to get your perspective on that, because in recent years we've seen participation dwindling, and voters' apathy have become an issue. Is this going to counter the next forthcoming elections too?
I'm going to hope that with the more recent efforts by INEC, especially the bimodal voter, identification and verification process, and then also with the electronic, transmission of results, assuming that technology does not fail us, electricity does not fail us, but to the extent that all of this is being done as more step to ensure that the votes do count. I'm going to hope that they will count more this time. So I was saying that, but because it doesn't matter whether they observe internal democracy within their party or not, that at the end of the day, if we go by the example of what has been happening before, the experience of what has been happening before, votes are just going to be bought. So it doesn't matter. So why are we all over the place about who is going to vote as a delegate for a party's flag bearers? What if I'm not a member of APC or PDP or Ogaga or any of the other parties? What does it matter to you that the members of that party, how the members of that party are going to vote, bring about their flag bearer? It's a party. They came together in the first place to seek, power by putting forward, theoretically, a platform of the things they believe in and what they will do if voted for. Their vision of the country and what they will do for governance and development. So that's their vision. Other parties have their own vision. Now, come election, I say we are presenting A or B as our flag bearer in the presidential election or the gubernatorial election. Now, we are here, those of us theoretically who are not members of the party, saying, but which delegates among them are going to vote? It shouldn't be our primary concern. If you ask me, our primary concern should be that we have candidates who we are going to interrogate to know whether they are fit for the office they are seeking or not. If they are not fit and their party has imposed them through some undemocratic procedure, that's their luck, that's their ill luck, then they will lose. Ordinarily, if we're having free and fair elections, if we have an informed electorate that is going to vote according to whether or not that party represents what they believe will lead, the things that they believe will lead the country forward or not. So I think we are too interested in the retail aspect of politics, down to trying to micromanage parties, exactly when they should hold how they should elect their flag bearers. It shouldn't really be that much of a concern. And they should be content to know this is a registered political party. It has followed all the basic requirements, which is a date is set for which they will do their primaries, and they do their primaries. On that day, if they say are doing our primaries, there's no opposition. We have a consensus. And they cannot disagree. And they cannot say you must do an election when the party says, but there's no, we agree that these are our candidates. On the other hand, they say we're using indirect method through delegates, maybe officials of the party and some elected delegates will do it. Again, that is a party, it's a voluntary organization. That is the way they say they're going to use, the method they're going to use to bring about, to choose their candidates. It shouldn't be that much of a concern to us, as long as they are not committing any crime in the process. Right? As long as they are not committing any crime in the process. That's all I think that matters. And if they say it's a consensus, so be it. So I think what we need to do now, as far as I'm concerned, for us to have a level playing field for all parties, is that whatever method of doing primaries is applied to one party should apply to all the parties. That's the minimum. Those are the kind of minimum requirements that I speak about. These requirements should apply across the board. then it is left to the parties to decide how they are going to implement, those requirements, how they are going to follow those requirements in choosing their candidates.
Finally, we've actually run out of time. Maybe you have just a minute or two to, get your view on this. Irrespective of whoever comes up out of these major political parties, many Nigerians feel that the country need new thinkers, not the old breeds. What's your view about this?
Well, it's mixed. Yes, we need new ideas, but it doesn't mean that it's only young people, for instance, that have new ideas. Or it doesn't mean that it's only people who have never been in politics, who have never been in government, who have new ideas. There are lots of people actually within the parties as they are who have good ideas, but most of them are prevented from actually being credible contestants because of the money factor and also the entrenched godfather and, influence that those who have been in power can acquire for themselves through the access to resources that they've had over a long period. So yes, we need new ideas. But again, some of these new ideas we're talking about are also old. Talk about the one I've just been harping upon, which is a sovereign national conference to decide on how Nigeria should be as a self-determining nation. These have been on. I was with the Alao Akabasharon group when we're trying to actually force the issue in 1990. And Babangida simply just shut us out of the national theater, right? So it's nothing new. So the new ideas are the old ideas, and the old ideas are the new ideas. We know what is wrong with Nigeria. It is the will to actually do it that is lacking. So if we're saying we need new ideas, good, but those new ideas are actually old, in my view. But still, it's the 21st century. So let all ideas come forward, and we'll see whether the newer ones can actually take us where we want.
Ogaga Ifowodo, thank you so much for your insightful perspectives.
It's always my pleasure. Thank you very much.
We hope to see you some other time. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, too.